What if I just unplug the mic? Hold on, grab this for a second. Exhibit, stop.
No, it didn't. No, it didn't. How do I turn it off?
Did it work?
Coming up on Bobcat Breakdown, it was the Battle of Whitney Avenue for both hockey teams. Plus, we discuss if Michaela Morris can continue her red-hot form. All this and more on the other side of the intro.
We're live right now. So live.
Wait, what'd she say?
That he is the record. Just don't worry about it.
Welcome back to Studio 125 for this week's episode of Bobcat Breakdown. I'm your host, Emily Sweeney, and tonight on desk we have our analysts Connor Core and Nick Antoniadis. Guys, how are you feeling tonight?
Well, Connor, I'm feeling good today. I love to talk about sports, and I like being right, so it's going to be a great show.
Yeah, well, the funny thing is, I like debating sports as well, and I also like being right, so I think you'll find yourself on the losing side of this argument today for the next 30 minutes, so get ready, and you might just surprise yourself.
Let's get to it.
On Thursday, women's basketball lost to the number 1 Fairfield Stags by a score of 54-59. Connor, do you think the Bobcats will be able to come back and beat the Stags in the MAC tournament when it matters most?
I think the obvious answer here is yes. I think they're very much capable of beating the number 1 seed. You know, they bumped down to number 3 after they lost and left Manhattan at the number 2 seed. They're going to get their revenge against Manhattan, but that's not the question. They lost by a total of 9 points in the last 2 matchups. The combination of Morris, Deweese, Free, and Haywood, along with the bench production, is what's going to propel them to getting this win. And the biggest key to stopping Fairfield is stopping Lou Lopez-Chanchel. She's averaging just under 20 points per game and just under 80% from the charity stripe. And, you know, that's how they're going to win, but I want to see your argument so I can finally counter it. Excuse me.
Well, I'm going to actually agree with you on this one, and I do have to say that we have they have good pieces. When we have Michaela Morris, Rose Calvary, and also Mackenzie Deweese, it's going to be a great for this team to help get this win for the Bobcats. I have to say, though, the only thing I have to say is, though, that they need to pick the right shots to take. They take a lot of shots, especially in late games. I do have to say, though, that last game against Fairfield when they lost, in the fourth quarter, they took 19 shots and only made 6, and then overtime when they lost, they took 6 and they only made 1. So I think the only thing that they need to focus on is to focus on getting those right shots in, and hopefully they can capitalize so they can go out and matter most in the MAC tournament and defeat Fairfield.
Yeah, I totally agree with you as well, but I feel like the biggest person that is going to have to step up for Quinnipiac is got to be Mackenzie Helms. You know, she transferred here from Nebraska about 2 years ago, right before the pandemic started, and she's been running the point guard position for the second unit, and if they're going to want to keep the lead or come back from behind and keep the game close, she's going to have to play extremely well to make sure that they keep the game close, or if they're ahead, to make sure that they're staying ahead and for when that first unit comes back in that starting lineup. It's going to be one of those things where, you know, when she was in the Big Ten, they played big games every single week against ranked Indiana, Michigan, all these big schools that we all know about, and coming to the MAC, you know, she brings all that experience, and it's going to be the biggest help for the Bobcats when they bring in that second unit.
Now let's talk about the red-hot women's basketball star Michaela Morris. With 6 straight double-doubles, will Morris continue to keep up this stellar streak, and for how long? Nick, you go first.
I do believe that Michaela Morris is going to keep this streak going, especially late in the season, and she has been absolutely fantastic. I have to say that all she needs to do is that she has to keep consistency. She has to take the right shots in late games, find the right people when it matters most, and also we have to make sure that the defensive rebounds are coming in late games. She is absolutely amazing when it comes to the defensive rebounds. In that game against Fairfield, she had 20 rebounds, 19 of them were defensive rebounds. So that's going to help her a lot for this team to go forward. The only thing that I have to say that she needs work on is the turnovers. She turns over the ball a lot. In that last game against Fairfield, she did turn it over about 4 times, and then the last game against Iona, she turned it over 9 times. So if she finds the right players and passes the ball, she'll be totally fine, but I think that Michaela Morris is going to keep this stellar performance going on.
Yeah, I agree with the turnovers. On any team or any player, the more you limit the turnovers, the more you're going to be successful. And I kind of said the exact same thing. She's going to be able to keep the streak going as long as she wants to. She's been making the case for either MAC Player of the Year this season so far, and she's been MAC Player of the Week for the second time this month, and there's only been 3 full weeks of February so far. And the only person that's stopping her is the person that she looks in the mirror each and every morning when she wakes up to go to practice, and that's herself. Outside of Manhattan, opponents have a combined record of 19-20, and Manhattan's the number 2 seed right now, like I mentioned earlier, and they lost to Quinnipiac at home a few weeks ago, 65-72. And she's going to be a key piece, as well as the reigning MAC Player of the Year. Why would we not mention her, Mackenzie Deweese, and all these supporting cast and very important role cast in Amani Free, in Sajeda Bonner, and all these bench players that we see coming out on the offense.
Absolutely. This team just needs to come together, and they're going to be absolutely dangerous going forward.
I agree.
Switching over to the other locker room, men's basketball have lost 6 of their last 8 games with a losing streak. Connor, how concerned are you with the team's play, especially with the regular season coming to a close?
Yeah, so we have a little bit of a mild concern, if you will, on a panic meter. I don't want to push the red button just yet. You never want to hit the big red button in an argument, but I don't want to hit it yet. We'll just leave it off to this side. But I'm not too concerned. And the reason for that is that they've been extremely one-dimensional, and we've seen at times where they can be two-dimensional in their offense and keep scoring points. They're constantly going to the pick and roll, and any good coach in any division, whether you are Division I or Division III or even JUCO, can pick up on the tendencies of a team. And for a team that's as one-dimensional as Quinnipiac, they're going to have to make sure that they become two-dimensional with the pick and roll and ISO situations, playing the ball inside out. And that's going to be the biggest thing, but I'm not too concerned about where the record is, because I think that in the MAC playoffs they're a little bit of a dark horse, but I won't put all my eggs in one basket quite yet.
Well, Connor, I think that I can see a little bit of concern for this team because it doesn't seem like the big players are coming big for this Bobcats team. We see players such as Kevin Marfel, Matt Belunk, and Jacob Rigoni. You see these players and you're thinking that they're going to be absolutely fantastic in the game. But we see a Kevin Marfel. He hasn't been doing at the absolute best that he needs to be. He's doing way too much, turning the ball over, taking unnecessary shots. And then when it comes to Matt Belunk, in the regular season, like the beginning of the season, he was amazing. Mm-hmm. You would expect him to get 15 points or even 20 points. But now you get to see this Matt Belunk not really doing as justice. And also Jacob Rigoni, which I'm really surprised about, because every time you see Jacob Rigoni handling the ball, you expect him to get an incredible shot and just get the crowd going and getting the team going. But I don't see it much on Jacob Rigoni. So I think that this team, they need to focus on their big players such as those 3, and also players such as Desi Jones playing absolutely fantastic. If this whole team gets together, they'll be totally fine, but I can see a little bit concerned for this team.
Yeah, going back to your Kevin Marfo point where they're constantly playing through him, and which comes a lot of turnovers. I think that goes back to like the one-dimensional kind of aspect that we were talking about, where he might get the ball on a roll off the pick, and he can't, produce or find the right guys, where he's constantly getting arms hit on him. But, they have to play more a team style of basketball more than just a two-man game on one side of the court, even in the middle of the court.
Yeah, absolutely.
Staying with men's basketball, how worried are you that this play will become the new normal for the Bobcats? Nick?
I could see it a little bit worrying for this Bobcats team, seeing it become the new normal, because as we saw in that game against Manhattan and also against Marist, which they lost by 1 point, they turned over the ball a lot. In Manhattan, they turned over the ball 16 times, and then against Marist, they turned over the ball 13 times, which is something that you shouldn't have if you're trying to be a team, be a team in general. Their next game is going to be against Siena on Thursday, and the last time they played against Siena, they lost by 9 points. So what I think that they need to do is just to focus on their defense, not turning the ball over, and again, those top 3 players, Kevin Marfo, Matt Belunk, and Jacob Rigoni, to get back to where they were in the beginning of the season. And hopefully, on Thursday, they'll be able to win against Siena.
Yeah, I was kind of coming into this thinking that we were going to have more of an argument, but so far we've agreed on pretty much everything. I'm not, like I said, I am not worried at all. Before Coach Baker Dunleavy came to Quinnipiac, he was at Villanova, and he coached when the team wasn't like the top-ranked team in the country like we know as them now. And he won 2 national championships with them. Granted, the head coach is Hall of Famer Jay Wright, so he kind of had that mindset where they kind of collaborated with ideas. But I have confidence that he will figure it out, and especially with this, to my knowledge, this is the first season that he had his entire roster and that he's recruited himself and not left over from the previous head coach. And, playing as a team, it's one of those things where you're going to have to play all levels of the ball, whether the offense, defense, transition. And like I said, I'm confident that they'll figure it out. It's just a matter of putting all the pieces together. Because in the middle of the season, they were red hot and got as high as 3rd in the MAC. And now we're seeing them fall off and starting to cool off. And whatever that may be, like we mentioned earlier with Kevin Marfo, forcing too many turnovers, or Matt Blanc starting to cool off from what he was in the beginning of the season against Maryland with that ferocious dunk. But it's one of those things where they'll figure it out. It's just a matter of when and how, and quite frankly, that time's starting to come to a close pretty quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. They just need to get back to where they were in the beginning of the season, and those players just keep getting to where they were before.
100%.
Now it's time for our first commercial break of the night. We will be right back with both men's and women's ice hockey after this. Stay with us.
When we adopt a shelter pet, we discover they're a unique mix of all kinds of things.
Come on, Jules, spot on this last one. There it is. Keep going with it. Leo.
They're a little bit of a lot of things, but they're all pure love.
I know what you're thinking. I need a job.
I need a new career.
Well, I've been there.
I've been there.
I've been there. I wasn't happy with what I was doing.
After high school, I didn't have a plan.
I just wanted to start working.
I got laid off twice, but you gotta keep going.
You just need the right skills. Find an apprenticeship.
I found a 2-year IT program.
I found a medical course online.
I'm now a consultant in the tech space.
You have more options than you think. You can do this.
You will find something.
You will find something new.
Maybe you can make retirement happen. After all, you made home ownership happen. Homeschooling yourself on loans, beefing up your credit score.
So I'm pre-approved.
You were like, yes! Sorry. Color-coding listings, ticking boxes, and flushing every toilet in a 20-mile radius. Home sweet home. You aced house hunting. Now get the tips you need to get on track at aceyourretirement.org.
Welcome back, and thanks for staying with us. Now let's move to the other side of the People's United Center with women's ice hockey. Over the weekend, the Bobcats lost to Brown 1-0. Connor, does this loss create any concerns going into the postseason?
No, never, not in a million years. Cass Turner said in postgame after this game that they are not concerned at all. If anything, it gave them a little bit more motivation heading into ECAC playoffs. With this loss, they had plenty of opportunities to score, even on a cross to Nod just had to put it up in the top right corner, but she was still unable to convert. But it's a matter of time before they finally consistently win, and with the ACAC playoffs coming up, it's only a matter of time before they get on a roll, and I expect that to happen.
Well, Connor, I'm going to disagree with you a little bit. The only thing that I'm really concerned about for this ice hockey team is that the offense. This offense team has always been the type of team that they haven't created enough chances this season. And it has been a trend this whole entire season as we've been seeing a lot of tie games, 1-goal games, whether it's 1-0 or 2-1, and they would lose the game. So I think that the offense really is a concerning for me. That game against Brown, they took 2 power plays, and out of all those 2 power plays, they only took 2 shots and missed both of them, which is something that should not happen, especially for a team that is aiming for the playoffs. The defense has been absolutely amazing. The goalie situation has been spectacular. They just need to fix up this offense, but I do agree with you a little bit saying that they'll be totally fine for the playoffs, but they just need to fix this offense and they'll be okay.
Yeah, heading into that last game, you kind of thought that like, okay, well, there's 1 game left in the season. We already know of idea of who we're going to play. Let's just go out, let's just play, see what happens. But I don't think that's the greatest thing for a team like that, to where they need to finish, because like they finished in the 4th seed and they could have gotten as high as the 3rd seed. But unfortunately, they lost to Brown right there, but I think they'll rebound pretty easily.
Especially the game against Yale, they should have won this game against Brown.
Yeah, 100%.
The ECAC playoffs will begin this weekend. Given the Bobcats season, how far do you think they will go? Nick, what are your thoughts?
Well, I'm going to go over the rest of the playoff standings. So for the quarterfinals, I have Quinnipiac defeating Clarkson, and then Harvard beating Princeton, and then Yale defeating St. Lawrence. And then I'm going to do a little bit of a surprise. I'm going to say Cornell is going to defeat the reigning champions in Colgate. And so when it goes to the semifinals, I'm going to say that the Quinnipiac is going to fall just short, and they're going to lose against Harvard, and they're going to move on to the finals. And also, again, I believe that Cornell is going to defeat Yale, and then they'll move on to the finals. And then when it gets up to Harvard versus Yale, I'm going to say that the number 1 team, Harvard, is going to defeat Cornell, and they're going to be the ECAC hockey champions.
Yeah, I kind of agreed with you as well. They're definitely a semifinal appearance when they defeat Clarkson, whether it's in 2 or 3 games. Who knows what's going to happen? It's with the 4 and 5 matchup. It's always a toss-up of who's going to win or lose. But when we get to the semifinal game, when they face Harvard, the number 1 seed, I also picked them to beat Princeton in the first round. It's one of those things where you're going to find that which team is going to show up to play. And I have a feeling that it's going to be Quinnipiac. And as a matter of fact, I actually picked them to go all the way to the ECAC hockey championship game and win, whether that may be me being from Quinnipiac or as a sports media non-biased journalist. I do think that Quinnipiac has the potential and all the right pieces together to get to that championship and defeat Yale again against Colgate.
Very surprising, but yeah, that's all.
Yeah. You better stop right there while you're ahead.
I'm biased.
Now we are going to toss over to the People's United Center to hear from Ethan Logue and Aiden Barrett for an update on the Quinnipiac game against Yale.
Yeah, thanks, guys. The Quinnipiac men's ice hockey team was able to get back on track tonight following a weekend loss to the Harvard Crimson by a final score of 1-0. They were able to defeat their arch rivals, the Yale Bulldogs, tonight by a final score of 4-0 in the second installment of the Battle of Whitney Avenue. Ethan Logan, I'm joined by Aiden Barrett, my fellow men's ice hockey beat reporter. Now, Aiden, no secret the men's ice hockey team has struggled over the past 3 weeks. They've dropped two games. They've kind of fallen out of the national rankings a little bit. Are they back on track? Are they back to playing their style of hockey, or is there still work to be done?
Well, Quinnipiac won the score by a final of 4-0, but it was a very slow start for the Bobcats. They had 5 shots after the whole entire first period was over, and they went to that about 10-minute mark, which is about halfway through the game. They got their first shot in the second period. That was shot number 6. They did score in it, though, and they went up 2-0, and they got, over the next 2 minutes, they got 5 more shots, and they went the rest of the period without another shot. So it was a very slow start. I don't know if it was because it was a rivalry game or such a big game. I mean, this is probably the biggest crowd I think we've seen all season long. And maybe there was some little jitters, little nerves going on. Third period, it made you feel much better how they played. They scored 2 more times. They actually over-doubled their shots all game long. So it was, had you feeling better after the third period. I don't think they're right there yet, though. They were scoring a little bit more. Just not a horrible game, not a great game.
So a very physical game as well, and as you mentioned, still not back to playing that style of hockey. What adjustments need to be made heading forward, especially as we head into March and ECAC playoff time?
Well, I'm not the coach, but I want to see that first line back together. They were killing it in the beginning of the season, and now they're kind of struggling. Bon Giovanni only has 2 goals in his past 11 games. The team isn't scoring as much. And another individual player that I want to see them really design maybe their game plan around is Tice Milanic. He's too good. He has 2 goals in his past 12 games. He's too good to be having a stat line like that. He's their best shooter. He's the more skilled forward on this team. They need to find ways to get him the puck, get him in high-scoring danger chances to score goals, because that's what he does. He does it better than anyone on this team. So I want to see them get Smolonic more involved in those, work around him a little bit more, because he's that good of a player. And let's reunite that first line, and then maybe they can get back to scoring, 4 or 5 goals, because they haven't lately. And you know what? Yanni Peretz has been outstanding. Dylan St. Cyr has also been very good for them, but they can't keep getting these shutouts. So they're good at that, though.
Yeah, for sure. And it's only appropriate that it's because it's Bobcat Breakdown. We send it back to you guys with a question. So, Connor, Nick, the Bobcats have won 10 of the last 11 installments of this Battle of Whitney Ave. So is it safe to say this is even a rivalry anymore, or is it just pure domination by the Bobcats?
Yeah, so honestly, with this 4-0 win today against Yale, it kind of does raise the question that Ethan was just talking about. Is this even a rivalry anymore? And to be completely frank, it still is going to be a rivalry no matter how much we want to argue it. It's still literally Whitney Avenue all the way down. It's about a 20-minute drive down Whitney Avenue, and then you're there. So I'll get your last thoughts on it.
Yeah, I do agree. It is a rivalry, but for Quinnipiac, it's not a competition. I mean, the last time that Yale defeated Quinnipiac was in 2011, which is so long ago. It was 11 years ago. This is definitely a rivalry, like you said, 20 minutes from each other, but it's not a competition.
Before we head out, I will say that they actually lost in 2018, so
did they actually?
First mistake of the night.
Oh, of course.
Took till B block, but we got it.
That's fantastic.
We are headed into our second commercial break of the night. Stick with us to hear the game of the week and final roars.
What do you think you're doing, Kevin?
Was just gonna drive home.
There are several warning signs present that you shouldn't be driving.
Like hearing voices?
Like your text-to-emoji ratio?
Oh man, the selfies.
Selfie, nailed it.
We all have warning signs that let us know that we're probably not okay to drive. Mine is pretending to be your subconscious.
Craig, come on man, let's split a ride home.
If you need to do something to feel okay to drive, you're not okay to drive. Don't drive buzzed.
Multiple studies have shown that marijuana can slow both driver reaction and response time,
which can be really dangerous.
He's here.
He's here. Wait. What?
I can't drive.
Why?
My.
Oh.
Thanks for sticking with us. It's time to get excited for the QBSN Game of the Week. This week's Game of the Week is the women's ice hockey game against Yale. The Bobcats defeated the Bulldogs at home with a score of 4-1. This was a huge game for the Bobcats as they secured home ice for the quarterfinal round of the ECAC hockey tournament with their win. Now it's time for what you've all been waiting for, final roars. Nick, take it away.
It's that time of the year to talk about hockey playoffs, and we got a good one coming up this weekend, as the Quinnipiac women's ice hockey will be starting their playoff run this Friday against Clarkson. There have been mixed emotions about how this hockey team played this season, but I believe this team played an incredible season I also think that this women's ice hockey team will be ready to go for this weekend. With the help of grad students Taylor House and Corrine Schroeder playing like they have been this whole season, they will go out and try to bring the championship to this Bobcats team. I'll say this now, I believe the women's ice hockey team will go on and defeat Clarkson in the quarterfinals this weekend and go to the semifinals to face off against Harvard or Princeton on March 4th, right here on Bobcat Breakdown.
We've talked about this men's basketball team throughout the show. If we're concerned and like I said, I'm not worried about being a former basketball player myself. I felt that I could only give my 2 cents on a possible solution to fix this problem in Baker Dunleavy's locker room. It all comes down to the one thing that's beating in your chest right before each home game, they play a hype video and end it with their motto, attitude. Players have shown their heart, like Matt Blanc and Kevin Marfo, to name 2 players. But from the starters, players coming off the bench, players who play very minimal minutes, they all have to be on the same page, the same time, all the time. And they can do that. And the sky's the limit. It's only easier said than done. But then again, the Cavs came back from a 3-1 series down in 2016 NBA championship.
Now I'm going to tumble into a sport that has been somersaulting to success, the women's acrobatics and tumbling team. The Bobcats traveled to Kutztown to compete against the Golden Bears and swept the meet. The Bobcats won every individual heat of every event over the Bears. They also recorded the highest compulsory pyramid and compulsory toss group scores of the meet. Cassidy Osher and Farah Shernov posted a 9.6 in the duo pass and both surpassed a 9.0 in the 6 element and aerial respectively. The Bobcats dominated on the road, winning with over 130 points. Their next meet will take place at Frostburg State in Maryland on March 13th. The Bobcats are hoping to continue to reach new heights and bring their positive pyramid to its peak during the rest of their season. And I'm telling you right now, they are a team you should keep your eyes on. Now guys, I'm just going to ask you really quickly on your thoughts of the spring sports coming up.
I'll let you start.
I personally believe I'm super excited for this men's lacrosse team, as they are going to be a sleeper team to be coming into this season. I'm very excited for this men's lacrosse team and also for the women's lacrosse team. They're also going to be a sleeper as well. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to just kind of switch it over to a little bit of golf that you normally hear as like a fall sport. And, you know, I heard QBSN has a little bit of coverage going out for their tournaments and meets and invitationals, if you will, coming up. So I'm really excited for the coverage that comes out of that. And I wouldn't be surprised if some Quinnipiac golf members bring home some hardware.
That's a very surprising take. I like it.
You better.
Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for tonight. To stay up to date on all things Quinnipiac sports, be sure to check out our website, q30tv.com. Also, follow us on Twitter at Q30Sports. From the producers, everyone behind the scenes, my analysts Connor and Nick, and myself, your host, Emily Sweeney, we thank you for watching and hope to see you again next week.